Hello, Fear the Fox here. Now, before we get into the podcast, I just wanted to apologize for my sound quality last week. We were testing Discord, and it seems the web version screwed around with my settings without asking. Suffice to say, I won't be using Discord again. So, sorry about that. Now, on with the show.
In a world that's been overrun by snowflakes, humanity's last hope is a group of friends with a lot to say.
Hi folks, welcome to this week's episode of Clecs podcast. I'm Ptolemy and I'll be hosting this madhouse today. I'm joined by the usual suspects, including Charmed Dragons.
Hello.
Dark Matter.
Hey, what's up?
Fox.
Hello.
Jay.
Hey guys.
And because he couldn't stay away, we are once again joined by Cloudman98.
Hello.
How's everyone doing?
Yeah, couldn't be better.
I'm alright.
We're doing fine. I am now within darkness, so I feel right at home.
Excellent. Okay then, guys, let's get started. Now, the topics I've chosen for this episode revolve strangely around a similar theme, which is children and childhood. This is completely by accident, I assure you. So, first one off the starting blocks, especially with Halloween just around the corner, trick-or-treating. What are your views on it?
I don't believe in it.
Good childhood memory.
Charmed? What's your reason for that?
Last year alone, there was something like 230,000 children finding needles in the candy they picked up from random houses.
Oh, pleasant.
And razor blades.
Sounds like a regular American Halloween.
Yes, fair enough.
Well, if you think about it, it's Christmas for paedophiles, isn't it?
Oh, charming, Jay.
Oh.
He ain't wrong.
No.
He ain't wrong there.
America goes all out for Halloween. I mean, they'll decorate their house. It's like, it's as big a deal as Christmas is over here.
Well, we decorate our house and we put stuff up for children if they knock the door, but I will never let her go out. And if she does to go trick-or-treating, I will be checking anything she picks up to make sure there's nothing dangerous in them. But I won't let her go out. Unless she goes out because her friends are doing it, then she won't be.
So, future boyfriends, be warned. Charmed will be checking you.
If they're not to my standards, they'll have their knob cut off.
Charming.
Easy, we're only in the first couple of minutes here.
That'd be quite the trick.
21st couple of seconds.
Yes. Well,
I do have a question. I do have a question about the trick or treating. They call it trick or treating, but all you get is treats. Where's all the tricks?
Well, that's basically it. It's essentially a threat of give us some sweeties or we'll play a trick on you. That is essentially what it is.
Is that why egging has become such a common thing?
Possible.
It's legalized robbery.
Yeah, that's that was my mother's view on it as well. When I was growing up, I always wanted to go trick-or-treating because I've always loved Halloween. But my mother never allowed me to go trick-or-treating because she viewed it as legalized begging. So as a result, every Halloween, we used to have a Halloween party in our house for all the children in the street. So they could enjoy Halloween in a safe environment.
But begging is legal.
Well, depends on how you view it. Because I know I know a lot of parents have this view that it is essentially legalized begging. Whether begging is actually legal or not, it depends on how up you are on the law. Like, I'm personally not up on it, but yeah, that's the reason why I never went trick-or-treating.
It couldn't really be begging, could it? Because you don't get those sub-stories during the end of it.
Yeah. I wasn't much of a trick-or-treater, though, because I just didn't like... It wasn't that so much I didn't like going out in the dark. I just didn't like going out at night anyway.
Hmm.
You don't know what could be in the darkness or anything like that. It could be your father shagging someone for you know, but you never know.
Pleasant.
Well, that's usually why they have one adult and a group of kids. So, traveling around a group, unless you're feeling really daring to go by yourself, then, well, what the hey? That was usually me going by myself in the freezing cold. Oh, that being October and wintry chills.
Plus, I wasn't much of a candy person.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't. I'm still a good candy person, right? But I used to get a lot of crap candy.
Hmm.
The Candyman can.
Yeah.
Well, one Halloween, in recent years, the local councils have been handing out these pumpkin-shaped signs to put up on your front door if you don't want trick-or-treaters. But one year, because we happened to be going out on the night and it was a fancy dress thing, I thought, why not? For the hour before we were due to leave, I was dressed as a scarecrow for this event, and I was wearing a piece of hessian over my head, so you couldn't. I didn't have a face essentially, but I could see through it. And I sat down on the doorstep of my house, motionless, with a bowl of sweets in my lap. And people coming up to my house then, they sort of, stopped and thought, what the hell is this? And then climbing up the stairs with caution, and then I just came alive saying Happy Halloween.
For me, see, children who come to my house and knock on my door involuntarily get involved in the ice bucket challenge.
Uh-huh.
Because my bedroom window looks right over my front door. So as they knock on the door, whoosh, bucket full of cold water.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough, I haven't had any last year.
Word spread.
I guess that's a trick then.
A friend of mine decided that she thinks that trick-or-treaters should not get exactly candy because they will get loads and loads of it. So she actually covered Brussels sprouts in chocolate and handed them out because it's part of their one vegetable a day.
Oh God, that sounds vile.
Wow.
That actually sounds vile.
They went back for more. The kids actually went back for more.
Okay. I can't imagine that on your Christmas dinner, chocolate-covered Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
I would eat Brussels sprouts if they were covered in chocolate. I won't eat them otherwise. I fucking hate sprouts.
So do I.
Okay, Timmy, let's check your candy for razor blades. No, you just find sprouts.
Maybe this way, every Christmas holiday, right? Those Brussels sprouts will get eaten instead of just being left behind like most Christmases.
Possibly. Although I've started frying mine with pancetta, so it adds a little more flavour to them. But it is one of the most Marmite items on a Christmas dinner.
But sprouts are deceptive because they're little fart bombs. You eat them and then
Yep.
I cannot remember the last time I actually went trick or treating. I know I did have a Grim Reaper mask on me, but Halloween, trick or treating or Halloween in general is now just a way just to scare the kids as much as possible.
Yes.
It wasn't a scream mask, was it?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. No, it was just a regular, skeleton mask with a black cape draped over it.
Ah, right.
This reminded me of something, and I don't think this was even for Halloween. There was a care home in the north of England that has now been shut down. One of their residents had a bit of a prankster streak to him, and one day he went round the outside of the care home and knocked on the windows dressed as the Grim Reaper.
Class.
I think he actually gave some of the residents a heart attack.
Fox did that.
Yeah, Fox did that, didn't you, Fox?
Fox pulled a very similar stunt, didn't you?
Look, it wasn't my fault. There was a Halloween party, a van was involved, we were driving along and there was an accident and we were stopped and told, you can't come through. This is a fatal accident. You're going to have to turn around. So, the van got turned around and I was on the passenger side looking out the window dressed as the Grim Reaper.
Yes.
Yeah, it was my van, you fuck.
But you didn't have to shout, bring out your fucking dead.
It wasn't my fault.
And Fox is lanky enough as it is. You know, that's a horrific image.
Still trying to beat my record count for the amount of people I scare every year.
You scare people without having to dress up, babe.
I remember, was it my first year or my second year of high school? There was a rumor going around the school. It wasn't a rumor; it was true. People from Cantonian was actually spotted going to the religious school across the other side of Cardiff, dressed as the devil on a Halloween night.
Hey.
Well, Dark Matter managed to scare something like 32 people in one place in the middle of the train station when he walks out and a bazillion kids fuck off in every single direction because he was dressed as Slender Man.
Yes.
He scared an adult.
I can believe that. I can believe that.
Most of the adults around where we live are scared of their own shadows anyway, so...
The good thing is, the good thing was, right, was that I was heading over to a what was it, a Halloween party, and there were a lot of kids and their mums there. So when I came in dressed as Slender Man, there was disco going on, and
yeah,
they did you know that chant, right, that the Pretty Witch sings in Hocus Pocus, "Come little children, I'll take thee away."
Oh yeah.
Come little children, I'll take thee away.
Now if you know the background of Slender Man, right, you'll see how that fits so well.
Yes.
but they also did win a bag of sweets for the best dressed character, and they kept avoiding Dark Matter and came to me, and all I was dressed in was a piece of blue lace to make it look like waves with a bit of cotton wool attached to it, and they thought I went as a mermaid, but I didn't actually go as anything in particular.
What did they actually say, child, about my costume?
It was a bit over the top.
Well,
especially for a kid's Halloween party.
I can remember doing an event with Fox, and he was dressed as the Grim Reaper and I was dressed as a clown, and none of the people we were doing the event for would even go near me.
I fucking hate clowns.
Well, that's only because clowns have been developed a bad reputation ever since, clown killers have occurred during Halloween nights.
Well, ever since Pennywise, really.
Pennywise.
But that's just it. They're not the clowns that Dark Matter's on about aren't based on Pennywise. It was a stupid fad on YouTube where the clowns were going around pretending to kill people. And last year and the year before, clown costumes were actually banned in around this area because people were going up to windows and looking through and they gave an old lady around here a heart attack and she died.
Hello, Georgie.
Hello, Georgie.
Well, personally, my pièce de résistance for Halloween costumes was Heath Ledger's Joker.
Oh, I would love to go like that.
Yes, I pulled that costume out for many a Halloween.
A couple of years ago, I went as Medusa because I had tried to do my hair for Morticia and it ended up looking like rat's tails. So when I went, somebody thought that I was going as Medusa. So I thought, yeah, let them think it.
Mm-hmm.
So you went as yourself then?
Come as you are, party.
Pretty much, yeah. But then I look like Pudge out of Dota.
Mm-hmm.
Could anybody actually ever eat their whole bag of candy once they came back home?
Yep.
I never went trick-or-treating.
Wouldn't even make it home.
Not sure I'd stop at my own.
One thing I always say till last, right, was those lollipops, the boiled sweet ones.
Mm-hmm.
See, now, if I'd gone trick-or-treating, I'd come back with chicken feed, horse feed, cow poo, because I lived in the countryside.
Uh-huh.
One thing I always look forward to was the bits of spare change in age when the adults didn't have any candy to spare around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. The kids who used to go trick or treating, used to get like 20 pence per child in my area.
Well, now that practically is begging.
Uh-huh.
That's basically busking on a higher level.
That's probably why my mother viewed it as legalized begging, because that's how it used to be done. But yeah, now in the area, it is more give the kids sweets.
Bunch of panhandlers.
I still don't understand how that could be considered as legalized begging. I mean, like a couple of things when it comes to begging, right? Right. Just thinking stereotypically here, right? Right. Begging is consisted of some poor sap and have on the streets somewhere, right? With as I said before, a sub story. Right, or like they need to get home, or they need to find somewhere to stay, right? And they need some extra spare change. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've never ever seen a beggar, right? Go up to a door, and just knock and ask for like some spare change.
Now, what you got there is blackmail. It's like, I want sweets, or you're gonna suffer.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do something nasty to you.
But the problem, Ian, is some kids get the treat and then egg the cars like they did last year around here. They were egging the train station. They were egging the back of the houses. They beat up one of the old men down by the train station, and they'd already had candy given to them.
Well, it is what it is sometimes, unfortunately.
The things that go bump in the night.
Yes.
If I catch them beating up anyone, they'll go fucking bump in the night.
Charmed falling out of bed.
Oh, that would be a huge crash where I fell through the floorboards.
And down the stairs. Do.
That wouldn't be a bump in the night. That would be a catastrophic event in the night.
Go boil your head.
Well, seeing as we've already discussed chocolate-covered Brussels sprouts, that moves us rather neatly into the next topic that I have on the list. And this is the concept of lying to children in regards to things like Father Christmas, the Tooth Fairy, etc. So, what are you guys' thoughts on this?
It's not lying.
It's all right to spread. It's all right to spread the odd lie every now and then, because as it heightens the child's imagination, and
Yeah.
a child's growing up with no imagination is like all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, basically.
It's really a question of morality. At the end of the day, would you call it lying to a child if the child was dying of cancer and they asked you, "Am I dying?" and you said no?
Well, I use the word lying in inverted commas.
I mean, I would personally call that lying, because then they're going to die and they're not even going to know that they're going to die.
Yeah, but would you want them to live out the rest of their few days without hope? Because I wouldn't. I wouldn't be able to live myself doing that.
I cannot live a day without hope. You're referring to more a lie of oppression. Is that right?
Well, take it how you want, but in the sense of Father Christmas or Santa Claus for some of our American listeners or others who refer to him as such a name, literally depends on where you come from. But around here, it's either Sean Corn or Father Christmas. But Father Christmas and the Tooth Fairy, the way I sort of look at that, it's and unfortunately, this is rather a sad view in a sense. I view it as preserving their innocence during the best years of their life when they don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
This is the time of their life when they can have fun and they're allowed to believe in these kinds of things.
I agree wholeheartedly then.
It's just depressing. Just depressing that they're going to grow up and go, oh, it's actually this then. Oh. Just really, once they grow up, they'll just be disappointed with what's left.
But it's better to disappoint them later in life that there's no Father Christmas or Tooth Fairy than it is to make them boring and old well before their time.
Although some people will argue that Father Christmas is real because he was based on an actual person.
Yes.
Hence why, if I remember correctly, that's why he's no longer on the fictional characters rich list, is because he was based on a real person.
Well,
Yeah.
the current depiction of Santa is entirely created by Coca-Cola Industries.
He was originally a pagan god, and the holiday was called Saturnalia. It is a complete lie created by the Christians, yet again, that it was actually Jesus Christ's birthday, because he wouldn't have been born around Christmas. He'd have actually been born in the fall.
Yeah, it has something to do with it had not the calendar we all know. It was of a different.
Yeah, the 25th of December was the winter solstice or something, and it just happened to be a convenient date. So
yeah, it was the pagan calendar. It was a pagan ritual. It was actually the reason Saint Nick or Santa Claus or Santa Claus, if you're German, is wearing red and white is because the red symbolizes the blood in the snow and the white is the rest of the snow.
The reason he's called Saint Nick is because the original Santa Claus was a bishop called Saint Nicholas, and he lived in Turkey. His family were rich and they died young, so he spread his wealth by taking presents to all the poor children in his constituency.
Give me Krampus any day.
Yeah, Krampus. Oh Lord, if
Swift kick between the legs will give you Krampus.
This is more the this is more the German creature that will take you away to his lair and consume you whole if you've been a naughty child at Christmas.
Well, so one of the stories tell, and he's been depicted, and he's been depicted many ways, and he's not really there right for his own benefit. He's more there as a second hand to Santa Claus. So where Santa gives, he takes. So where Santa rewards, he punishes. So,
well, every country has their own depiction of Christmas. Like the Italians, I think I can't remember her name, but they have a witch that leaves sweets for children inside. I think it's a shoe. That if they leave a shoe outside their door, she comes round and leaves sweets in the children's shoes.
Okay.
And then.
That's Hansel and Gretel, isn't it?
No, not quite. This is a good witch. And then in Greece, they have some. I'm not quite sure what they are, but they're demonic little creatures called the Kali Kanseroi, I think, where during the 12 days of Christmas, they go around causing havoc.
That's just kids.
Possibly.
I want that for Christmas. I want that for Christmas. I want that for Christmas.
But there's nothing. But there's nothing wrong about it. But there's nothing wrong about a child's innocence and the imagination they have. Children have huge imaginations. Nothing we could ever muster.
True.
Okay.
And the good thing is, right, the fact that they have that imagination, right, that's also that can also be used as a creative tool. Well, a creative tool to deal with whatever it is bothering them, should we say?
Yeah.
I mean, like here's one we've all been told, right? The monster under the bed or in the closet. Sorry, cupboards, should I say?
Yes.
That's just your weird uncle.
Pleasant.
Yeah, there's a common story I've seen online, right, about some girl and a dog some girl and a dog, right? She's lying in bed and the dog is beside her, licking her hand, right? When she wakes up, when she wakes up the next morning, she finds her dog dead and had a note saying, "Hey, humans can lick too." Oh
God.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dark Matter. I'm not sleeping for a month.
There's something online of 2-sentence horror stories, and the only one I can remember is there was a voice coming from under the bed saying, "Who's lying on top of my bed?"
That was probably just the mother's other half.
Possibly. But yes, we digress. If I ever had a child personally, I probably would allow them to believe that creatures such as the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, and Father Christmas were real. For various different reasons, but as you said, Dark, the children have imaginations that go far beyond what we adults can muster. So it's yes, it is probably the best for them at the end of the day.
One thing I'll state though, right, is because this would happen to me a lot of the time, right? Exposure to some things when it comes to imagination can go a little bit too far. I mean, like that's I mean, like when it comes to horror. I mean, like when it comes to horror stories, right? I mean, it's all right. I mean, it's all right to test the children's imagination, right, and expose their dark side. Right? I used to do that when I was storytelling for kids. It's in the summer camps, but they were mellow. They're not like really in your face. Yeah, one thing I will say is don't overexert the child's imagination, because a child's imagination can also run riot. I mean, we all as kids, it's right, have woken up from nightmares, or being that we've believed in something so much, right, that it's yeah.
Yes.
I mean, like my parents, right, used to used to come into my bedroom like most nights. I hide when I would wake up, it was screaming, and I would say to them, right, there's like a man, and at the foot of my bed.
I'd be the hell out of there.
There's something on the wing. Something.
Carry on, Doc.
What I didn't realize at the time, right, was that it was my own shadow. It was just a black shadow. But ever since then, right, I believed it was some sort of weird entity, and so it plagued my dreams for years.
I used to have recurring dreams quite a lot, but there was one that was really weird because there's something with the brain where nerves can actually, like, you have a residual feeling where something has happened in a dream. And I remember having one. Went outside out my front door. I saw somebody down the street. I knew them, so I said hi. Then something popped in front of me and had like something like a pitchfork or something like that, or a knife, and it stabbed through my shoulder. I woke up after that. I just dropped to the floor on the in the dream. I wake up, but I can still feel on my shoulder where this pitchfork in the dream went straight through my shoulder, but I could actually feel where it would feel like 4 prongs of a pitchfork. But I could still feel it.
You didn't have an angry relative stood over you when you woke up by any chance, did you?
No. Well, I've often had woken up in the middle of the night when I've had that feeling where it feels like I've suddenly fallen from a great height and landed on my mattress.
That's your heart slowing down. That's actually a medical condition.
I've had a reoccurring dream of I go in through the door of the house I used to live in, and my aunt throws a cobra at me, which sinks its teeth into my hand, and my arm actually hurts for 2 days afterwards.
I will say one thing for imagination, right? Because me being a poet, me being a writer of poetry, right? Of horror stories. If it hadn't been for all those moments of where I was, I was scared, like scared out of my mind, or was not afraid to stretch into imagination to ridiculous lengths. I wouldn't have been able to come up with half the stuff I've done now. So there's a good side. So there's a good side to imagination. There's a bad side. You were mentioning about lies before. It's okay. It's okay to lie to children, right? But just kind of work it into a truth when you think about it. It's like, kind of like a white lie.
Mm.
Don't go using them as a way of saying, "Hey, sorry, your father's not here anymore. He had to go somewhere and never came back."
Mm.
You know what I mean?
And don't use it as a weapon.
Exactly.
Mm. Yeah, because I have a friend who lost her father at a young age, and she was just told, he's in heaven, but it took her a while to grasp that that context. So
Yeah.
we've agreed that there are some serious pros and cons to it, however way we look at it.
There are limits to how you lie to your children and how far you can stretch their imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so next on the list is taken from a news article that Fox found online a couple of days ago. And although Fox himself is not a father, he said, "I genuinely feel distressed by this." And this is an article about new fathers not being allowed to stay in the maternity ward overnight when their partner is having or has had a baby.
That's because some females may not have a partner, and it basically makes them feel segregated, because they see the mum and dad are happy with the baby, and they're sitting there thinking, okay, well, I don't have that, and then they just get more and more depressed, and it helps to stop basically like the blues, as people used to call it, depression after the birth, because they're seeing happy families that they don't have.
The birthing blues.
But then what if the woman went through a particularly difficult birth, and the father wanted, to be at their side, to be sure that that his child and the mother of his child is okay. Now, if I were to put myself in a man's shoes, and my partner had gone through a difficult birth, I would want to see them immediately. But I don't know how anybody else feels about that.
Now, I don't understand, because when I had my baby, my fiance was able to be in when I was giving birth, and could be on the ward straight after, but couldn't go on to the ward that you've got to spend the night on. They are allowed in to see the birth, and they are allowed to stay with you in the recovery room until you go into an actual ward. There's certain times, but
That's not the issue. The issue is that they're not allowed to stay after a certain time. There's like a closing
Yes.
time, and if the birth occurs after a certain point, then they're just told, go home, go away.
yes,
You're
they
not
are.
wanted here, you're not allowed here, and that's the father of the child.
I was always under the impression, right, that the first thing the baby would see, right, is the mum, right, and the first and so as a necessary necessary recommendation, he should write. I hide the bonding between the mother and the baby is priority. The father will come along later. So, yeah.
But in my mind, that means the father doesn't get to bond with the child at all, which might explain why so many fathers don't really bother after that point, because they've lost the one opportunity that nature gives them to bond with their child, and it's taken away from them.
I believe we touched on this subject a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned that, fathers have got as much right to be with their child from day dot as the mothers do, but unfortunately, mothers always get higher priority than the fathers, even though it takes both of them to make the fucking thing.
I think it's wrong to send the father home. I just, they're a new father, and they've just got to go away. And there's also, some of the comments to this particular article were very negative towards men. It's just like, well, we need a break from them. They should go away. They should leave us alone. And it's just like, if somebody spoke to me like that, if somebody was just like, go away, I'd take them literally. I'd get as far away from them as possible, because that relationship's over.
Well, that's usually just one particular knob, because I didn't feel like that. I actually, after my fiance had to leave, I was actually talking to him on the phone, texting him up until the following morning. and the nurses had no problem with that whatsoever. But I could also see why some of them can't go on to the wards when you get moved, is because if every father went onto the ward, then it might get a bit cramped. But
So how you doing, love? Oh, I'm doing.
right, but in most hospitals, there's only two visitors to one patient.
Hmm.
I don't see why it is such a big issue because the baby and the mum, right, usually stay in the hospital for like about, what was it, 3 days or something like that?
Well, I was only in overnight and I had a C-section. It depends on how long it's taken for the birth as to how long they've got to stay in, or if there was complications during the birth that they got to stay in longer.
Irrespective of the minimum time the mother and the baby stays in hospital, right? There's all that time when they do come home and for the father to bond. So I don't see why it's such a big issue.
Yeah.
But then again, if you take a different view of it, when you've got somebody in hospital who the staff fear they may die within the next few hours, they call the family round. Now, even though it's less likely to happen today, childbirth is still a very dangerous thing. Women can still die during childbirth. So that's... like, I don't have a child myself, but I would prefer Fox to be constantly at my side during and afterwards. I wouldn't want him out of my sight.
If they knew right that you had some sort of life-threatening disease right in your body, right after the birth, they would tell you, and I'm sure they would actually make exceptions for that.
I mean, it's irrelevant because they make everybody go to hospital, regardless of whether they, need a hospital to give birth, or most people can do it naturally anyway.
They do make exceptions, because there was a lady who was suffering with postnatal depression when I was on the ward, and her husband was allowed to stay with her overnight because he was the one dealing with the baby. It depends on the circumstances between the mother and baby as to whether the father gets to stay or not. If the child is fine and the mother's fine, then there's no reason for him to stay as far as the hospital is concerned. And there was another one where the mother walked out of the ward because she didn't want the baby, and the father came up and spent he was still there when I left, and he was with the baby.
I just think it puts an unnecessary amount of pressure and stress on a relationship to separate people at such a critical time.
And the press maintains that it's the men that always walk out on the baby. Fucking hypocrites.
Yeah, there have been so many documented cases. Again, I don't know whether she knew of these people personally, but my mother has always told me of a couple she had heard about. They were both white, but she gave birth to a black baby. So there must have been, some African genes some way down the lineage of one of them.
No, it's not. It's actually a known...
I bet you the postman was black.
It's a known condition that white people can have black children, and black parents can have a white child. It's very rare, and it's a genetic condition.
Oh, it is documented, but because the child was black, the parents discharged themselves, and then the nurse went back onto the ward and found they'd left the baby behind. They'd made a joint decision. Both of them decided to leave it behind because they didn't want it. So yeah, I agree with you, Jay. It is really annoying when the men get blamed for all this type of shit, because women are just as capable. We're not the. I'm not going to tread into this whole feminism thing. Where.
I believe we already touched on this right in a previous episode.
Yes, and I'm not going to to tread into it, but
I won't tread into it. I'll jump into it with both feet. Women are worse than men these days. Far worse.
They can be worse. But some women are not frail. Some women are not strong. Some women are bitches. Some are not. it just like men, it's an entire scope, and it's just really annoying when one particular sex is getting blamed for a lot of it when the other sex is getting away with it left, right, and centre.
Just going back to the very beginning of this, right? You mentioned before, right, that Fox saw this, right, in like a news report, right? Right. One thing we should know about tabloids is that anything can be made and to create news, right? We can't tell if it's justified or not. So yeah. One thing about tabloids, right, and hide is either right to get the person's interest or to heighten their anger. So
myself, I tend to swerve away from news, media, any type of news site, say like The Sun or anything. Because
yeah, same.
in my opinion, most of it's made up. I'm not going to say all of it's made up, but most of it is. Because the media's job is...
It's conspiracy, man.
Yeah, it's the media's job to make everything seem bigger than it actually is, to get interest, which it's their job to do that. Most of the time when they're doing that, it can cause dispute in people outside of the media that have just seen it.
I wouldn't worry too much about the tabloids, right? The fact that fathers, right, cannot stay with the mothers over the night, right? There are always exceptions. One should also thank the hospital, right? And I've actually given them the chance, right, to see their children. So yeah. At least the father gets to see the baby right before they leave. So I don't see what the big deal is over this.
Yeah.
Before we carry on, can we just clarify that as far as all of us are concerned, the NHS are fucking miracle workers?
Yes, I will vote for that.
Before people think that we're dissing the NHS.
No, we're not.
They're amazing people.
And I would love to thank the nurses and especially the surgeon who looked after me after the cesarean, because he came in to check on me the following morning, as well as popping in on me on the recovery ward to check how me and the baby were doing. He was absolutely amazing, and so were the nurses who were taking care of a child that had been abandoned by both parents.
Yeah.
They were bloody amazing.
I would like to thank the doctors, right, who were there with me 24/7, right, to deal with my every waking need, right, when I was having my appendix out. It was a scary process. So yeah, and I must say, right, their bedside manners and their food, top notch. So yeah.
But the point I was trying to make with the media thing is, if they actually just get like info from a certain person, it'll be about one paragraph, but they need to explode everything to get a minimum of 2 to 3 paragraphs. Because say for example, this may not have happened, but say a person has taken a picture of a celebrity doing something naughty, but they could just be like, oh, that's not such a big deal. But the media's job is to make everything seem like, oh, what's going on here? Is there a secret person underneath and to do with this?
It's an innocent statement blown out of proportion.
Yeah.
They've got a story to sell, and, sensationalism sells. That's the thing, but it does harm. Not that anybody who's raking in money hand over fist is going to care, but, it can cause harm.
They exaggerate.
Basically, take anything you read from the papers with a pinch of salt unless you've done the research.
I mean, I guess the thing that really annoyed me about this particular article was the fact that the article itself is just eye-opening to like, oh, okay, I'm not particularly liking that, but okay. But you look at the sort of public comments, you look at the sort of toxic people who come in and are just like, yeah, men, fuck men, they don't deserve anything. And you're just like, really? This is okay? That's just depressing.
Well, moving on, because we still have a few topics to get through. The next one revolves around an idea that I saw on a television advert. Credit cards for children. Good or bad idea?
No.
Ugh.
Fucking terrible idea.
Well, it depends.
It's bad enough that they issue them to 16-year-olds who go off and buy fuck knows what.
Well, the idea of it, according to the advert, was perfectly sound. It's monitored by their parents or their guardians. They are able to set a spending limit, and the parents see where their children are spending the money and how much they've spent. So there is a spending cap, and the general idea was to allow them to learn about money, which will benefit them in the long run. But when because Fox and I were in the same room when we saw the advert, but I remember his immediate protest was, you're not teaching the child about money, you're teaching the child about credit, which is a totally different thing.
I mean, if you want to teach your child about money, give them pocket money. How hard can it be?
Which is what I will be doing. I think it's a terrible idea because kids can't fight off somebody if they try to go, they see a little purse with they're like, oh, credit card, that's an easy target. Let's kill them, take the card and, hey, free money.
More to the point, right? And giving a child, right, a credit card, right, also teaches them how to quickly get into debt.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's conditioning. That's what it is. It is conditioning a child to, this is how we spend money. We spend money with a credit card. But that's not how we spend money. That's how we spend other people's money.
Whatever happened to plastic coins? Heinz, what we used to play, what we used to use in the playground.
I prefer the chocolate ones.
Oh, primary school memories.
No, because the problem being is that's called eating money. If you have chocolate ones, you're like, oh dear, I've eaten all my money now.
He said plastic coins, not chocolate coins.
Fox said chocolate coins.
But Dark said plastic coins, and I know what he's on about. Yeah, they were basically plastic knockoffs of of the real coins that
I still have some.
You would.
They were from an old set when I was little.
Okay, being the parent of a 16-year-old who's got their own card. Okay, I'll rephrase that. Someone being the parent of a 16-year-old boy with his own credit card.
Sex toys.
You know what he's going to be spending it on.
Porn.
Yep.
Porn.
Again, if you're conditioning your child to, this is how money works, and you're giving them a credit card as the model for how money works, that is an awful life lesson. That's terrible. I've lived my life without a credit card, and I do understand the point of a credit card. I understand its purpose, but so many people don't. So many people use it for everything, and then they get themselves into crippling debt. And unfortunately, all I see from this kind of thing being touted is the people behind it are the very people who are going to be issuing credit cards and making sure that these kids come out of school and straight into a bank to open their first account and go, well, might as well have a credit card then.
But you can get into debt without a credit card, as I found out, unfortunately.
I will be happy to say, right, that I've never ever had a credit history. Ever. I was greeted by like one of those salesmen, right? As you find in malls. I was right, just standing around, right, and asking me if I'd be interested in applying for a credit card and all these benefits you would get from it, right? These would be insurance on your car, or help you save money for like a mortgage on your house, right?
Crippling debt, sleepless nights, bailiffs knocking on your door.
And I'm looking at these things and like, well, none of these apply to me, so why would I want to get a credit card for you? And said, well, I don't know. Do you want a credit card? Or I said, no, thank you. So I walked off. No, debit cards are always good for me. Debit cards, I have what I need on there, and I don't spend too much.
Same here.
You spend what you have.
Like what Jay just said, with the crippling debt part, which made me laugh. It's just like they're like, okay, or this thing you get easy money from our premium credit card. You can get a mortgage. You can get what's that word say? Crippling debt. I mean,
You can buy things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to afford because it's like, here is access to money that you don't yet have, but we're going to lend you this money.
and then not being able to pay it back.
We're going to lend you this money, and then, at some later date, you pay us back with some interest on top because we're doing you the favor of lending you this money. But nobody is told that, and everyone is expected to understand that the money that they're spending is not their own. If you condition children to this is where money comes from, they're going to grow up thinking, well, that's where money comes from, and they're going to spend someone else's money, and then they're going to come knocking on the door. And the child grown up is not going to know what hit them because they don't realize what money is.
This is why it is wise to teach them and ease them right, just basics and about how money works, and also right, I put them into the society of capitalism.
I scratch your back, you scratch mine.
That's what pocket money is all about. You give a fixed amount of money every so often, and then they learn the value of that money because they've only got a limited amount to spend. So they spend that money and there's no more. And they go, well, that means that if I want anything that costs more than what I just spent, I'm going to have to save up. And these are really vital lessons. I don't think kids will learn them if they're, if the digital age presents them with like a credit card for children. I just think that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't think it's going to matter too much longer because banks are already on about moving on to a point where your retina or your fingerprint is going to be your bank card. I don't think money is going to be a physical thing very long because cryptocurrencies are flying up in value.
Yeah, money itself, the actual stuff, right, it is going out of fashion.
Yes.
I saw it online somewhere. I'm pretty sure. I think it might be only in America at the moment. You literally have Bitcoin ATMs.
Oh, I've seen them in this country.
Just reading between the lines, though, right? With the new notes, right? They've sent out with the £5 and the £10 notes. I think there's a 21 coming out at some point, right?
Yes, there will be.
Yep.
That gives me the impression, right, that this new technical money, right, is not going to be with us for quite some time yet. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
Well, they say they've, especially with the design of the new pound coin. Although God knows how long that's going to last. What with Brexit looming, but the idea was essentially to make it harder to copy. Essentially.
Well, yeah, that would be the way to go.
There is a drawback to the new £5 and £10 notes: is the fuckers stick together.
And and I've heard many instances where they're like you say, you've got a note in your pocket. They're so slippery that they can slip between your fingers easily.
Stick one in the microwave and see what happens.
It shrinks.
And that is why there is such a thing as wallets and purses where you put your money in.
They did the exact same thing with the 5p piece when they made it absolutely tiny, and now it's one of the most commonly found things on the floor is 5p pieces because you just lose them.
Well,
They're so tiny.
Actually, the most I've ever found is 1 and 2p pieces, and I swear people just throw them away because they don't want them.
Yeah.
They throw them away, right? Because they're bronze. They don't. They have the lowest value.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't understand, and this is going by the whole saving the whole saving part of what you mentioned, Fox, right? Is the more copper coins you find, which is quite frequent, and the more you build up. So the more copper coins that are thrown on the floor, you could end up with about £1 in about 2 days. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. The thing is, that's what I used to do in my bank account.
There's an old saying: "Look after the pennies, the pounds look after themselves."
Yeah.
In my opinion, the best drink driving test should be if you're pulled over, you've got to get a 5p piece out of your pocket without dropping it or other change on the floor.
I'm missing you somewhere. There he is. No, fuck, that's a pound.
I swear to drunk I'm not God, officer.
See, I love throwing up. I love something that I read the other day. There was a guy driving. Well, sorry, there was a family, a man and a woman driving back from their daughter's wedding in France, and the guy had been drinking all afternoon. So the police pull him over and they breathalyzed him and asked if he'd been drinking, and he said, "Yes, I've been drinking all day. It was my daughter's wedding." And the police officer goes, "Sir, do you know why we pulled you over?" He went, "No, but can you answer me this? Why have you breathalyzed a British person driving a British car? No, why have you pulled over a British car and breathalyzed me?" And he went, "Well, because you're driving drunk." He said, "No, my wife is driving a British car in France." So
Yeah.
the wife was, I can't remember the base of the story, but they turned it into a joke because they pulled over a British car where we drive on the right-hand side, and they breathalyzed the fucking passenger.
Yeah.
We drive on the left-hand side,
This is
Jam.
why you don't have
Whatever.
a license, Charmed.
I'm
This is
fucking
why.
shit with my right and left. Whenever I tell somebody to go right or left, I've got to look at my fucking hands.
Oh, I'm staying indoors when you take your test.
Okay.
As long as I'm always turning right, it's fine.
Okay, I think we have time for just one more topic before we have to wrap it up. So I'm going to go with something else that I found on another online article, which I think eventually made it onto television, onto shows such as Good Morning Britain, which is a show I've never watched, so I wouldn't know.
Again, take everything with a pinch of salt.
Yes, but this revolves, of all things, around Fireman Sam, or
Oh, Christ.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
or Sam Tarn, as we call him in Wales. The Lincolnshire Fire Service have dropped Fireman Sam as a mascot and have subsequently banned him because he is outdated and not inclusive enough. The Lincolnshire Fire Service are claiming that he's putting women off joining the fire service.
So,
Can I point out a huge...
Good. Women belong in the kitchen
Can I
anyway.
point out a huge flaw in their
Oh.
logic? If they watch the new Fireman Sam, they'll see that they have a female firefighter and the bus driver is black.
They've always had a female firefighter. Because I went to a Welsh language school, I grew up watching the Welsh original, and there has always been a female firefighter in the cast.
If they're worried about being underrepresented, they just have to look at the statistics for the UK. In the UK, 96% plus of all firefighters are men. More than 96%.
And unfortunately, the fire service is one of those jobs where physical strength is, it's a vital aspect.
Yeah.
it sounds the article itself, right, just sounds like a waste of paper and ink.
Yeah.
Yes, it was, I'm afraid.
Because I'm not being funny, a £20 woman is not going to be able to pick up and lift a £180 man. It's statistics.
And a woman is not going to be able to pick up a fully grown unconscious man. So yeah, this is like.
Oh, I don't know. Charm manage it.
Exception rather than the rule.
That's because I'm about £229.
But either way, again, this is. And again, Fox and I have had a discussion about this in the past. You get these feminists complaining, oh, you don't see that many women in like science-based jobs, but not many women are actually interested in science-based jobs. And again, the fire service is not often a go-to for women, purely because it's not the type of job they're interested in. So I understand that they're trying to recruit more women to their they're trying to recruit more women into the service, but and one of the points they made was that we can't use a character called Fireman Sam because they're called firefighters now. And, he was using pathetic excuses such as that. and I know somebody who commented on the article said I watch this show with my grandsons, and I can tell you it's the most PC show I've ever come across. And male role models, you don't need to delete them. You've got young boys who have dreams as well, so don't delete male role models, just add more female ones for balance. Don't exclude one just for the sake of advancing the other.
It'll be Bobbit the Builder before long. You watch.
Is it?
Bobbit? I don't think that's going to end well. Bobbit the Builder. What do these two bricks do? Oh my god! Bobbit.
Speaking of Bob the Builder for a second, have you seen what they've done to him?
Yes, I think so, and it's horrendous.
Mm-hmm. But they do, again, in the new one, they do actually have Brenda the Builder.
She was in the first one as well.
Oh, you've got to be joking.
No, I'm not joking. He's got a female companion who helps him with all of his building.
I thought you were calling Brenda a heathen. All right, Bob.
It could be. It's 2019.
Yes.
That's a fanny. Sorry, I mean tranny.
Oh, God.
I'd correct you, but I'm not sure how.
I don't think we should. I think we should stop there before we dig ourselves in any further. And I think we've
agreed.
And I think we've pretty much reached our limit anyway.
Nah, pass me the shovel. I'll show you how deep I can go.
Abort.
That's what I
6
said.
feet under.
Not with pleasure, Jay. Not with pleasure. So that neatly wraps up this podcast for this week. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us once again and listening to us waffle about the little things in life. Jay, would you like to tell everyone where they can find us?
I certainly would. You can find us on Patreon. Please start supporting us so as we can get better content than this drivel out there. You can also find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on iTunes, Facebook, and Twitter. You can no longer find us on SoundCloud because we're cheap. But yeah, you can find us everywhere else. You can find us on YouTube, Patreon, Facebook, Spotify. Have I forgotten one? Twitter and iTunes.
Thank you very much, Jay. And don't forget, you can also find Dark Matter on YouTube. Would you like to tell us a little bit more before we close out, Dark?
I think they already know about where they can find me.
Okay.
If not, please check out the previous episodes because I will not be repeating myself, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
That's fair enough, Dark. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in. And if you liked what you heard, please join us for the next episode. Support us, and we'll see you all then. Bye, everyone.
Ta-da.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.